talk for a few minutes about section 2.4, order of operations with signed numbers. One of the first things that people have a hard time with order of operations with signed numbers is when you have negative numbers and exponents. So this is something you ought to really get clear on. It's something that people have trouble with on the Module 2 test. It's also something that causes people to not pass the proficiency test. So this is just really something you want to get a handle on, and if you have any trouble with it, ask me about it in class, ask at the math angle, ask at the math help desk, be really sure you know how to do these. So if we have a thing like this that says -2 in parentheses to the 4th power, you know that that means this. It means -2 multiplied by itself 4 times, because that's what an exponent means. So that means that when you do this, you're going to do -2 times -2 is +4. +4 times -2 is -8. -8 times -2 is going to give us +16. So down below, I want to show you, these are the two that people really struggle with on tests. So the first one means just what we talked about up above. The parentheses being around the -3 tell us that it is -3 that's being multiplied by itself the 2 times that the exponent shows. So that means this one is -3 times -3, which is +9. This one, the negative sign is not inside parentheses, and so it's sort of an order of operations thing. What we're really doing is squaring 3 first, and then putting a negative in front of our answer. So we do what we're going to keep our negative out here, but then what we're really doing is what's being squared is 3 instead of -3. And then that becomes, and you can see the difference, +9 over here, -9 over here. Make sure you see why that is, make sure you practice those, make sure you know how to do those. So there really isn't anything different when we do order of operations with signed numbers. The reason this is a separate section in the book is that the notation can get more confusing, because the meaning of parentheses, for example, can get confusing when you have order of operations with negative numbers, because sometimes we put parentheses around numbers, negative numbers, when we mean multiplication, for example, and that can get people confused. Remember that parentheses in the order of operations, at the top of the order of operations, what that parentheses means is really if there's an operation going on inside a set of parentheses, you have to do that first. It doesn't mean just look for any parentheses in the problem. It means look for a set of parentheses that has an operation going on inside the parentheses. So these examples here are all just showing the same thing. We have -2 times 4, and then we add 5 to it. So same thing here, -2 times 4, it's just shown a slightly different way. We add 5 to it. -2 times 4, add 5 to it. And another way of showing -2 times 4, and then we're adding 5 to it. So all of these will have the same answer. They're all showing the same thing, but you notice the notation is different. So that's what we want you to practice in this section. And then this last one is just another way of showing the same thing. But here it actually is, the parentheses are acting as a grouping symbol, and this is what I was saying before about the parentheses in the order of operations is talking about operations going on inside of parentheses. And here, there is an operation going on inside the parentheses, negative 2 times 4. Now you notice it doesn't change the answer of all the other ones up above because we were still going to do multiplication first on all the other ones. But it does change the notation. Those parentheses do become grouping symbols that you have to do first. So parentheses are also sometimes used with negative numbers just to kind of call attention to the negative number, or sometimes to separate it from another sign, like an addition or subtraction sign. And so don't get confused by that. Remember, parentheses in the order of operations is really talking about operations inside of parentheses. This is not an operation, it's just a number. So these two are saying the same thing. They're both saying negative 2 plus 9. It's an addition problem. You just do it as an addition problem. So negative 9 plus 2 equals negative 7. So another thing that causes people trouble sometimes when they start with these is the minus sign or the negative sign can mean any of the following, and you have to start getting comfortable with that they can mean any and all of these, and you have to look at the context of the problem to figure out what to do with it. So in the first one, this one means subtraction, and that one means a negative number. Down here, they both mean negative numbers. On the bottom one, this one means the opposite, and then this one means a negative number. So up here, we're going to do negative 3 minus 2 is just negative 5. Here, this is going to become negative 3 minus 2 because of what we learned in section 2.1, 2.2. That's also negative 5. And then this one, the opposite of negative 5, becomes positive 5 plus 7 is 12. So again, we really do the order of operations in the same way with signed numbers. It can just feel a little bit more complicated because the notation gets more complicated. We really do the same thing as we did before. So in the next video, I'm just going to do a series of examples to make sure you understand how to do these.